of its seasons. He led his teams to the playoff 5 times and to back-to-back championships in Kansas City. And just the other day, he was named NWSL Coach of the Year for the 2nd time. Vlatko is known for his deep understanding of the game, his unmatched preparation, and his tactical flexibility. Frankly, I can't imagine a more perfect match than this coach for this team at this moment in time. In the NWSL, Vlatko has already coached several players of our women's team. They know each other, they respect each other, and they know how to win. Some might ask, after 4 World Championships, what's next? And as I've said before on many occasions, more and more countries around the world are now investing in women's programs. The competition for us is only going to get more intense. The years ahead won't be a time for resting on our laurels, but for reaching even higher. So Vlatko, to you, to your family, thank you for taking on this new assignment. Congratulations, welcome to U.S. Soccer. And with that, I'll turn it over to Kate.
Hello, good afternoon, everybody, and thank you so much for being here. Carlos, thank you for the nice introduction. Before I get into the search process and how we ended up with Vlatko as our key leader for the next cycle, I wanted to thank you for all your coverage this past World Cup, of the NWSL, of everything you do. So from that list, I used a rubric to start to slowly evaluate each of them as an outsider before I actually reached out to anybody. And being the first GM, you'll hear that I probably reached out to lots and lots of people. I did reach out to lots of people, but not for the sake of interviewing, but just for an introduction, because I was the first GM in women's soccer history, and for really what that role meant, and in this case meant for hiring a head coach. So it was to build that initial rigid connection moving forward. From there, though, when I called people like Vlatko, it was just to introduce myself and to build that comfort level, because many of them on that list actually knew me from television. It's a little bit different talking to me as a reporter sitting in your seat than now saying, hey, I think you're a really interesting candidate. If I were to ask you to interview, would you be interested? And from there, I had numerous candidates that were interested in being interviewed and being evaluated on a second conversation. And in that second conversation is when I did conduct an interview. And from that list, I narrowed it down to 2 finalists. And those 2 finalists came to Chicago. They had to present a presentation based on a couple different questions where we were able to assess and give them scores in the different domains that make a coach successful. Some of those are technical, tactical questions. Some of those are managerial experience, success, records. All that was created to come up with an aggregate score. And then from there, it was how they presented in that room, how they were able to detail and inform us of what they know. And then also from what we saw when we put them under the gun a little bit and did a spontaneous, without them knowing, Q&A session tactically when we asked them to break down a game. And from that meeting in that technical committee, with that group of people, we selected Vlatko. And Vlatko was unanimous in that decision. I then called the technical committee, part of our board, and walked them through the same process. Unanimous support of that decision, and then with the board call, unanimous support. So I'm very proud to sit here to say that we selected the best candidate for the job with the best fit, someone who can develop players individually but also collectively evolve the style of play for this team and continue to set higher standards due to his excellent managerial experience and his commitment to building a sustainable culture. So thank you. So I'm proud to introduce Vlatko Andonovski as our new women's national team head coach.
Kate, thank you. Thank you for the kind words. Carlos, thank you for kind words as well. And I also want to thank you guys for giving me the chance and giving me an opportunity to coach the best team in the world, to work with some of the best players. I'm extremely excited about the opportunity, and I can't wait to start. I'm just looking forward to the first day on the field with all the players and the staff. And Ernie, thank you as well for the chance and the belief in me. Thank you.
Great. Okay, we'll start with questions. Grant Wall, go ahead. Mike, coming right there. Boom.
Congratulations, Vlatko. You have a big tournament, the Olympics, soon, less than a year away. And I'm wondering, how do you balance the short-term goal to win that tournament with perhaps introducing new players, or does that potentially come more after the Olympics?
Thank you. First and foremost, I know that the Olympic tournament is about a year away, but most importantly for us is before that is to qualify for the tournament, and that's going to be our first thing on the agenda. And we have a very experienced team. We have players that have been on the international stage. They've won big games, big tournaments. So we're going to rely heavily on them, but that doesn't mean that we're not going to expand the roster. It doesn't mean that we're not going to expand the pool and deepen the pool. We're going to look at new players, and at the end, the ones that perform the best at training, at game, will get a chance to be on the roster.
Great. Next up, Meg. And Meg, can you say your name and outlet?
Meg Linehan, The Athletic. Vlatko, obviously your background coming from NWSL, there has been a lot of talk about NWSL form, any number of things affecting the national team. Obviously your background slightly different than Jill's, just coming from Reign FC. I was wondering if you could talk about your approach to how you're going to kind of manage those two worlds now, having that background.
Yes. First, Reign FC, you mentioned, and NWSL have been tremendous in my development. They've done such a great job in creating a platform, not just for players but for coaches like myself to develop and to improve their knowledge and understanding of the game. I think it's the NWSL is an incredible opportunity for the players to develop, and it's an incredible opportunity for me now being on this side to see how the development goes and how they do in their respective markets. I've already had numerous conversations with the coaches in the markets, and we are all in agreement that we're going to collaborate as much as possible, and ultimately we all gonna fight and strive towards the same goal. Obviously, they have first goal is for them to win games and win championships in the league, but we're all going to fight towards the ultimate goal, winning World Cups and Olympics.
Great. Jonathan?
I have a question for Vlatko, and I have a follow-up for Kate. The one for Vlatko is somebody had said to you when you were running around as a player at Kemper Arena and the Spectrum way back in the day that in 2019 you were going to get arguably the biggest coaching job in all of American soccer. Would you believe it?
Now when I look back, I could have never believed that that was going to happen. 20 years ago now, when I came in the country, the first goal is for me, obviously, to enjoy the game and play the game that I love. I never even thought that I'm going to coach, but once I started coaching, in the back of my mind, I don't know if I thought about it all the time, but in the back of my mind, there was always that thought that if the opportunity presents itself, I would love to coach this team, and I'm just glad that, again, Carlos, Ernie, Kate believe in me and my qualities and give me the opportunity to coach.
A question for Kate. We heard from Carlos and also from you about tactical flexibility and the importance of that in Vlatko's coaching resume over the years. There has been a lot of conversation in U.S. soccer as a whole, and I know Ernie's here, but there has been a lot of conversation in U.S. soccer as a whole about an American playing style and a certain way of doing things, and it has been in some ways, even on the men's side, a little rigid. In terms of the tactical flexibility on the women's side and building a team with all these great players, how much is that one element part of the conversation for you?
I think anytime you're evaluating a coach, you want to be able to identify their style of play, because then you can really benchmark that of whether or not they were able to achieve that against different opponents. And I think the one thing that's consistent, that when you watch any of Vlatko's teams, and especially when some of his teams, he was a bit without some of his key players due to injuries or World Cup call-ups, you always saw a very consistent thing is they like to have the ball, they're very sound defensively, and they attack creatively. Right? And they do that by trying to create overloads or positional advantages or trying to create different opportunities from various pockets of space that he's identified from opponents and capitalizing that with player movement or positional play. Right? So I think that's very consistent across the board. It's just a matter of the execution and how it looks, the strategies in which you employ in order to achieve your objective.
Great. We'll go to the front row here.
Nick Siccardi, NBC Sports. This is for Vlatko and Kate. Alex Morgan announced her pregnancy last week, and according to a source close to her, her goal is to return for the Olympics. Have either of you spoken with her about her situation, and how will you go about handling that situation next spring?
So I did reach out to Alex to congratulate her on the great news. But right now, for Alex, the most important thing is to have a healthy pregnancy and deliver a healthy baby. When she does that, we're gonna do everything in our power and use the resources that the federation is providing, whether it's high performance director, staff, anything that we can do on our side to help her get back for the Olympics.
I knew before it was announced that she was pregnant, and like Vlatko, I just said congratulations. As a former player that gave birth twice during my career, I know that the first thing on your mind is just having a healthy baby. So that is really where I positioned the conversation the entire time, because I was so elated for her. And very similar, I'm going to echo Vlatko's statements, whereas I was like, let me know what I can do to help. You know, just stay healthy. Don't worry about anything else other than having a healthy baby, and then we'll have a conversation. And in fact, then I texted her the name of my trainer that I used to come back after I gave birth from twins. So just give everybody the best chance to be their best is what we try to do.
Great, we'll go in the back.
Joe Tollison, SiriusXM. Start first, Kate, with you. You said you talked to a lot of people. It has been out there how this is a pretty popular choice for the players as well. How many of the players did you have a lot of discussions with the current team about who they would like to see or the type of coach they'd like to see?
I think player input is always very valuable, but not just player input, but past player input. And I think anytime you're doing your due diligence on a candidate, you also want to triangulate that with other sources. So not only did I talk to current and former players that played for Vlatko, played for a bunch of different coaches that perhaps were on my list, I also talked to coaches that had worked with them or had been there for part of their coaching education, both domestically and internationally. And Ernie helped me make some of those calls. So we did that. And then also it's just the results speak for themselves when you watch them, when you see their style of play, when you see what their players can do. And if you can see development of individual players from the start of the season to an end of the season, that's another data point. So you get to see from a triangulated way the inputs that everyone's giving to you, and you start to weigh them. And then pretty soon that list got narrowed. And based off the interviews, then that list got a little bit more narrow. So that is how I went about it.
And Vlatko, what does it mean to you to know going in that you seemingly have the support of the team as the new head coach?
I mean, it's amazing. I think it's very important to know that the players are excited just as well as me. Okay, like I said before, they're some of the best players in the world, and to know that some of the best players in the world value the knowledge, the understanding, and the job that I do, it's extremely important for me. And I mean, I'm just humbled by some of their comments.
Great. In the back here.
Ira Jersey, the Beautiful Game Network. Vlatko and Kate, Carlos mentioned that the game is growing overseas, and we have a lot more American players playing in places like Europe and England and France in particular. I can name a few. When you talk about expanding the player pool, are you considering more international folks as well?
When we're talking about expanding the player pool, we're talking everywhere. I mean, anywhere we can find, we think that we can find a player to make this team better and help us win games. We're gonna consider that player, whether it's NWSL, Europe, outside, anywhere in the world, or college soccer. We're gonna look very thorough and do research as well to make it possible.
Good. Michael.
Vlatko, Michael Lewis from Front Row Soccer. Congratulations. Back in the day, you coached two professional teams at once in the same year, Kansas City Comets and FC Kansas City in the NWSL. What sort of a challenge was that, coaching two teams, maybe not necessarily at once, but in the same year? And how did that prepare you for this position?
Thank you, Michael. The main challenge was just the workload throughout the whole year. It was intense. It was stressful. There was literally no day off, and I think that was a great challenge. And set me up for the stress that, or not necessarily stress, but for all the challenges that are going to be ahead of me. Now I completely understand the challenges. The challenges that are coming by coaching the women's national team are going to be greater, but I hope to get up to speed as soon as possible and get the job done.
Hi, Bob Williams from Sport Business International. Vlatko, what is your view on the equal pay issue between the players and the federation? And Carlos, what is the latest on this situation?
All right. I'm very respectful of the drive, of the push that the players have. In fact, that's positive for me because they will translate to the field. And I have no doubt in my mind once they step on the field that they're going to be focused on what is important at that time. Once they put the jersey on, they put everything else on the side, and they're focused on winning games. They've proved that in the past, and like I said, I have no doubt in my mind that they're going to do that in the future.
Maybe I can add to that. And so this is obviously a subject, the subject is pending litigation, so I can't get into a lot of details. But I will just reiterate what I have said in the past, which is the Federation has always been committed to paying our players, our senior national team players, both our women and our men, fairly, equitably, regardless of gender. I'd say I was personally very disappointed that the mediation back in August wasn't successful. A number of us on both sides spent a lot of time preparing for that and at the meetings themselves. But notwithstanding that, I'd say we're still very committed to resolving this and in a fair way. But I think at the end of the day, that requires compromise. I think a lot of people forget that this federation is responsible for hundreds of players, girls and boys, at different levels. We're responsible for our Paralympians. We now have a beach women's soccer team, futsal, and all with a relatively limited budget. We don't have unlimited financial resources, and so we are constantly pressed. The board and I spent an hour and a half on Saturday talking about some important, difficult decisions we have to make on investment for the next budget, and these are choices we have to make. Notwithstanding that, we want to pay our women and our men as much as we can, and so that process continues. I hope, sincerely hope, that we can put this behind us soon enough, and so that when they go onto the field to play for Vlatko and wear the crest, that's where their entire focus will be. And so I'd say, give us some more time, but that's where we're heading. Hopefully, heading in that direction.
Andy.
Thanks. Hi, Vlatko. Andy Das from the New York Times. The players often talk about how there's a responsibility inherent in just being a member of this team. There's a big responsibility in coaching this team, too, especially as the game evolves. And as we saw this summer, other countries are making significant gains in women's football. Does that change how you approach the way you want to coach a team, knowing you're taking over from a coach who hasn't lost a game in 2 cycles in the World Cup, that other teams are now getting better? Does that change anything about the way you come into this job?
Andy, thank you for reminding me to put some more pressure. But yes, I mean, what this team has done and what Jill has done, it's I think absolutely amazing. Jill was hired to win 1 World Cup and she won 2, so just pushed the standards even higher and made the whole job to be, I guess, even more stressful at times. But for me, I was very well aware of it, and I knew coming into it that we're gonna go to win every game. I knew coming into it that it will be extremely important to win, all the big tournaments. Now, in terms of changing anything, I wouldn't necessarily say change, but I would say evolve. And the reason I'm saying that is because the game is evolving. This game has evolved from World Cup to World Cup, but also is evolving from year to year. So if we don't follow those trends, then all the other national teams are going to catch up with us. And in same time, I don't just want to follow the trends. I want to set some of those trends. We want to be innovative. We want to be creative, and we want to be leaders in those trends.
Great. In the back in the white, I think you have a question.
Thank you. Sean from Soccer Long Island Magazine. I'll probably say this wrong, but Chesty Tom, is that correct?
That is very correct. Thank you.
You're welcome. You're coming in, I'm hearing a lot of rumors of an early camp, December camp. Any input on that?
Yes. The first camp actually starts in less than a week, and in the November camp, and the two big games for us, two important games. But then December camp is the next one, and that's a camp that will help us identify some of the players that have potential to hopefully play on the national team soon or at some point. And the camp is going. I mean, to some degree, it's going to be an AD camp.
And just as an FYI, that first game of the next camp in Columbus, we've already sold more than 18,000 tickets. Anyone else? Questions? Jonathan?
A couple questions here about the tactical side of things. Vlatko, since you've worked with so many of these players, and also Kate, maybe you can answer this too from your experience. How much is the personality management side of this a factor when these players are, for good reason, some of the biggest egos in international sports because they've reached this level?
I mean, first and foremost, we're saying how good all these players are. Some of the best players, and there's a reason for it. And some of the reasons are they're very competitive, they're driven, and they just want to play. Now, managing them, I personally never felt like I have problems managing them when they were in markets, whether it was Kansas City or Rain FC when I was coaching them. And I don't know if it's the approach, but they do like to be coached. They want to be better. They want to improve. They want to develop. They do accept information very well, as long as it's direct, honest, clear, and concise.
Yeah, the best coaches are the honest ones and the ones that will tell it right to your face. And the team is full, and the culture has always been full of interesting, engaged, and competitive women that are looking to kill each other for a starting spot. That won't change, and you just need a coach that's honest with you to tell you how to get better. And that's something that stood out with Vlatko and his management, and why he's been so successful in shaping good teams around great players that buy into his system.
Peter?
A question for Kate. Peter Nolan, High Press Soccer. When you mentioned there were several people in the room with you in Chicago when you had the final two interviews, who would they be, and how? Just a general question: how have you found your new role?
So that, for the finalists in the proposal that you're talking about, when I gave them questions and only gave them a week notice to do it and come prepared for an interview, it involved Ernie Stewart, the sporting director, who had already gone through the process once and was valuable support throughout the entire hiring search process. Cindy Parlow-Cohn, who is a technical expert, and then Barry Paulus from Coaching Education, who has worked with many coaches both here and in Belgium, and just looking and quizzing him and quizzing the other candidate and putting different scenarios in front of them to see how they could think on their feet in a stressful situation in which they know they were going to be evaluated, and also the quality behind their answers.
Great. Any other questions? Oh, Meg? Right behind you.
So just having been at the NWSL Championship this past weekend, Crystal Dunn was talking a little bit about waiting to kind of see what even her next role is. Obviously, you have a lot of decisions to make about a roster, where people are going to play, but in looking at a specific decision like Crystal Dunn, who's slotted in as a left back, but could potentially play the 10, could probably play any role in the field. Like, where are you at in terms of those decisions already?
Obviously, I didn't have a lot of time to think about everything. First, officially, I got the job less than 2 days ago.
True.
Yes. But, in preparation for it, I did a lot of thinking. Now, like you said, Crystal Dunn is a versatile player, and that's what makes her special. And not just Crystal Dunn, but anyone that is on the roster will be put in a position where we feel that they can strive, get better, develop, but in the same time can help the team be successful.
Great. We got one in the back.
Vlatko, you mentioned a couple times about evolving with the game, and you will be in maybe an unenviable position as the head coach of, as this team evolves, there will be legends of the women's national team that you may or may not have to say there's no longer a place for you. Have you contemplated those tough decisions?
No, I mean, the most important thing is who can do the job. The performance is what matters, who's going to be on the team and who's not going to be on the team. And when we're talking performance, we're talking performance on training, performance at game. At the end, the ones that deserve to play, the ones that I believe will give us the best chance to be successful are going to be on the roster and on the field.
Great. All right. If there aren't any other questions, thanks for coming. We're going to clear this out. Photographers, we'll have some photos opportunities up here with Vlatko and Kate and Carlos. Otherwise, everyone, thanks for joining us.
Thank you.